Everybody, welcome to the council meeting for the 26th of March. We will start with our karakia. Thank you. We have apologies from all those in favour, those against, carried. No public forum this morning. Do we have any conflicts of interest? Nope. I've had no notification of extraordinary business, so confirmation of minutes from the 11th of December. Gosh, is that right? 11th of December. Yep, I'll move those to put those in the Yep. Yes. Yes, Dad, and Callum will come and speak to the table.
All right.
And you can talk then. Yep. No conflict. Oh, 19th of February. I thought that date was a bit... Okay, so the minutes from the 19th of February. All those in favour? Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Yeah, so all those in favour, all those against, carried. Thank you. So we move to the Mayor's report. Once again, it's quite long and it'll be in your papers. We've started off with Lunar New Year. We've had a number of those events with the Chinese ambassador. And then we had our Lunar New Year at Aotea Lagoon, which was our first big project down there. And I have to say, Aotea Lagoon was just amazing. We've had a metro sector. We've joined the Porirua School's climate change event at Pātaka with 28 schools attending. We've had Children's Day at Ngāti Toa Domain. We've had citizenship. The Interfaith Council came in to see me here. I'll just skip a few because there are so many in there and you can read them later. International Women's Day. I've been to Parliament a couple of times for the Food and Kapiti Food Festival. I've had the Rowing Club. The Titai Bay Beach for that event was awesome last weekend. The beach sprints, Porirua Brass Band, and the list goes on. There's so many things to talk about, so you can read them later. Taku, what about you? Your first train ride? That was me. Well done. Okay, and we'll move to our first report, 10.1. Well, no, can I change it up and move to 11.1? Because seeing we've got Callum here to talk, so I'll just move that around. So Callum and Julia, would you like to come? I'm going to move that report to put on the table, seconded by Councillor Wehapi. So would you, Callum, would you like to come up? Yep. Oh, Ray, you're there as well. Julia, you coming up as well? It's your paper. Would you two want to speak first? No, Callum's going to speak. Over to you. You just need to put your mic on.
There we go. Kia ora, everybody. Mayor Baker, thank you for allowing me to come and address this particular topic. Hopefully we've all seen the paper. The paper is the first step in a tono, a request that I put to the Mayor at the end of last year, I think it was, to for looking into the return of some of the council lands at Rangituhi to Ngāti Toa. It would be significant for us at Ngāti Toa because we are on a pathway, a road to reclaiming some of the things that have been lost from us, and in recent years we've been quite successful at that. The first point to make from our point of view, of course, is that there's a spiritual connection to our land. In 1847, much of the land that Ngāti Toa held was alienated, with reserves being left, which was a part of the policy at the time, we'll leave some reserves for Māori, and that includes the Whitireia block. There was legislation in the 1850s and 1860s which saw the reserve land subject to the Native Lands Act, and therefore was divided, moved into individual title and lost over time. It was very similar to what happened in Kapiti. Now, with our settlement in 2014, the Kapiti Island returned to Ngāti Toa, and there's around 150 odd hectares in the north of the island, which is owned by the Toa Rangatira Trust, but which is managed by the Department of Conservation under the Reserves Act. The reason I bring that up is that we are well aware of how important the lands around Rangituhi are to the entire community. Everybody enjoys it. Everybody feels a part of it. It's a wonderful place for families to go, for individuals, cyclists, hikers to go. And we wouldn't want to change that. We think that's a great thing for it to do. But Ngāti Toa should have its name on the title because it's a part of the land that was alienated from us. In much the same way as with Kapiti. Kapiti is a wonderful example of how the community can build something which is truly significant. I don't know if many of you people have been there, but it's a wonderful place to go to see the natural environment, what it can be. And again, portions of that are owned by Ngāti Toa, so that's not a threat in and of itself. The partnership of Ngāti Toa with the wider community to create something that the entire community can benefit from is our vision. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Julia, would you like to say anything?
I don't have anything more to add. This would allow us to investigate what those options are and come back to council with those options.
Okay. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora, kura matua mihi kai kanahira. Callum, ngā mihi moto a whakaro he korero me tēnei ata. I have a question which it relates to something that I've raised on a few occasions, and it sits uneasy with me. And I know that it may also cause some mamae as well, so I just want to be careful when we talk about this part of it. I appreciate the letter and the conversations that have been had regarding he mea tono. I wanted to talk about he tono whakanuia, to cover another site that I think sits uneasy with me to have it under council control. There is a parcel of land down at Ngāti Toa Domain, which was the prison where Te Raupaha was held before he was taken on the prison ship away. Obviously, there is a lot of pain related to that incident and the lingering the legacy of that. It always seemed weird for me that as representatives of the Crown, we're holding onto that space, considering that the risk is always that we will control the narrative of that, where it's not fair and has been covered in treaty settlements. Would you, Callum, be, my partai is this, Callum, would the Runanga be opposed if there was an expansion of the conversation regarding the return of Rangituhi to also look at a process around other sites in Porirua in due course?
The Runanga would not be opposed to expanding the conversation.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Are we happy?
Sorry, I'll speak to the paper.
You can. I've opened it to speak to the paper.
Okay.
That's where he was from.
Oh, okay. Cool. So obviously we are in a unique position here. We're in a unique position to be in. Just recently, I attended a te marawata hui with other councils around New Zealand. And we talked about the barriers that local councils have, their barriers with partnership and connection with their local iwi, and in some instances, various iwi. We only need to read the room here today. And I am incredibly proud to be part of a council that values a strong treaty partnership, and I strongly support exploring further options for this return. Kia ora.
Roland?
Kia ora, thank you. Yeah, echo Councillor Wiapi's words there. In principle, totally support this. Really proud that we're having this discussion as well. Thank you for coming and talking to us today. I just have a couple of clarifications. So what we're voting on today is investigating the options available to facilitate the return. So this feels like it's the very beginning of a process. The paper notes that PCC only owns part of that land currently, the middle section of the land. I guess my question is, for the rest of the land in Rangituhi, is that something that there is a separate parallel process playing out with Ngāti Toa is looking at, or is the intention that part of what we are doing at council and our land is that we're actually going to be looking at that other land as well and working with Ngāti Toa around returning the entire package? I just want to get an idea of the scope that we're discussing.
So our discussions to date, my discussions with the mayor, have not involved land outside the scope of the city council at this stage. But be clear, the Runanga is on a pathway to reacquire the whenua that's been alienated. But the context of this particular conversation has been with the Porirua City Council controlled land to date.
Okay, thank you. Probably the only other question, and this is probably a question for Julia actually, can you play out what the process looks like for us from here? So we're going to investigate some options. What's the timeline? Presumably, eventually another proposal will come back to the council table?
Yes, there's a number of different mechanisms, I believe, using different bits of legislation that we'll look into. I'm not an expert on all of those different processes, so we'll have to deep dive into some of those. And we'll come back probably 3 or 4 months with some really high level, I'm guessing here, with some high level options that may still need to have further investigation. There may need to be some conversations with the Department of Conservation, and that may impact our time frame because one of those pieces of land, I believe, is a Crown-derived reserve, so DOC would need to be in that conversation, I think.
Okay, cool, thank you. Yeah, I guess just the last comment I'd make on this, reiterating, really glad that we are having this discussion. We talk a lot about, and a lot of our practice reflects as well, the genuine partnership that we want to have with Ngāti Toa, the respect that we have for Te Tiriti. It's important when opportunities like this come up for us, I think, to then put our money where our mouth is and follow through. So, fully support this. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Lawler?
Yes, also just want to endorse Councillor Wehapi's comments. I'm very pleased to see this at the table. Also, thank you for bringing this to us, but also thank you for your comments around public access to the site, because of course that will be what the broader community is interested in. But very pleased to support. So kia ora.
Councillor Leggett?
Yes, I support the recommendations as well. I just want to be clear, Councillor Hayward's comments around expanding this, that I want to be clear that we're sticking to one thing at a time and we're not expanding the remit of this now. You didn't bring anything to the table, so let's do this, and because this is going to be complicated enough in itself. So not averse to looking at other stuff in the future, it's just one thing at a time.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, I echo Kylie's comments as well, and Josh, I like what you had to say there as well. Look, this is very high level for me, and there's a lot of detail that we need to go through. For instance, I wondered if any of the land was compulsorily acquired and whether that has back up. But all those things will come out in the report that comes along later. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward?
I asked the question before, so I'm going to use my time for comment now. I will respond to the comments made by Councillor Leggett. I think if we are to proceed with providing options, it would be prudent of us to think about the principles at hand when we look at this, because it will set a precedent for other processes. Would it not be more practical and proactive to look at how you would have a process for future parcels of land as well, lest we waste ratepayers' money and issue? I know that this is close to the councillor's heart on a process when we get to another similar issue. Kia ora.
Would you like to answer that, Wendy?
Well, it's really a comment. What I would say from bitter experience with Disposal Portfolio 1, which many of you have the same experiences, that the broader you go, the longer it takes. So I would probably advise that you should focus on Rangituhi in the first instance, with an eye really to what mechanisms might be suitable, and if there is an opportunity to add things in, well, that's probably part of the process. But land is really difficult. It's got really complex legislation, and we have the councils everywhere have got land through a variety of paths. It was definitely compulsorily acquired at some stage, but it only the Public Works Act only comes into play if it was compulsorily acquired within, I think it's 1 or 2 transactions. So we just have to step our way through, and I'd probably just advise that if you want it to take 30 years, well, we could, take in the whole city, but if you want it to take a lesser time, we should probably, as I understand it, this is the most important, Callum can speak to that, this is the most important land holding that we currently own in council hands, so that would be my advice anyway.
Councillor Fermanus.
No, just echoing Councillor Weehappy's words. I've been to those Te Marawata huis, and the question I had amongst other councillors was what their relationship was with local iwi, and so I appreciate our relationship we hold with Ngāti Toa, and I do support this.
Thank you. Taku, did you want to speak?
I just really appreciate the comments that have come around from around the table in terms of the support majority of council members, and I think Ngāti Toa's projected around acquiring land because we had none. We had none. The only land we owned was underneath our whare tupuna. All the rest was taken, gone. And if you have a look at the historical content, we had south of the Whangaehu River to the side of the Kaikoura. And it was all after the 1860 land wars, it was all confiscated. So you can understand or see why Ngāti Toa's trajectory is not to alienate it fully from public use, but to work alongside council and the public to actually have Ngāti Toa identify it. So yeah, I really appreciate the go forward, and want to say thank you as well. It's Callum.
Thank you. Councillor Philo?
Morena, obviously this is something that I support wholeheartedly, and also just want to say ngā mihi as well to Uncle Callum.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Waddle?
Lucky last, I guess. I just want to absolutely wholeheartedly support the direction of this paper, and the quicker we get it through, the quicker we can get it back to us and see the options forward. So 100% support.
Thank you. It seems like it's been a long time coming, and I know we've been having discussions, so I'm really pleased to see this on the table today. Fantastic to hear that we still have public access and everything else, but I can't wait to see the outcome, Julia, so there's no pressure from you. So, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, Callum, for coming in. Thank you, and thanks, Ra. Okay, we'll go back to the order. So 10.1, Audit and Risk Committee. Would you like to move those papers?
Yes, I move the recommendations from the, the Audit and Risk Committee meeting from the 26th of February 2026, that being the Three Waters debt transfer details.
Councillor Leggett, sorry, seconded by Councillor Leggett. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Okay, 10.2, Te Puna Kōrero.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. I'd like to move that Council adopts the committee recommendations from Te Puna Kōrero on the 5th of March 2026 regarding the naming policy.
Seconded by Councillor Lawler. Any issues in there? All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Carried. Puna Kōrero 19th.
Kia ora no. I'd like to move that the recommendations from the Te Puna Kōrero meeting of 19th March 2026 be accepted by Council.
Seconded by Councillor Duncan. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Carried. 11.2, our Central City storage project update. I'm going to move it to put it onto the table. Councillor Leggett, thank you. Seconded. Discussion? Anyone? I know we've... Yes, Councillor Philo.
Kia ora. I just want to set out my thinking on this. So we've been asked to increase our budget by 2 million with the ribbon cutting just around the corner, and this project's essentially complete. This increase is not for the construction costs. It is not for contractors or physical works. It is driven by Wellington Water increasing their corporate management fee from 6% to 10%, which resulted in a $2.5 million increase in the overall project or the budget. This was a known cost change to Wellington Water for at least 18 months. It was not brought to councillors at the time. Instead of coming to council, the approach was to try and cover it from the contingency. But the contingency is for unknown project risks. This was not that. This was a known increase in their fee. And this was presented to us last week. We were not provided with material in advance to prepare or ask informed questions. That information clearly existed and it was provided after, not before. A major concern I have is that a 10% fee is materially higher than typical for a project of this size, and this is based on feedback from the industry that I've spoken to. I'm told typical fees are more in the range of 5 to 6%. Now, when fees are set at that higher level, there's usually clear project-specific justification that hasn't been provided here. That was just a blanket increase. I acknowledge this is a reallocation, not a rates increase, but it is still ratepayer funding. And it could have been used for other projects. Instead, we've been asked to redirect this $2 million to cover an increase in corporate management fees. So even though the cost ultimately flows through the system, I'm not comfortable approving it in the form given the lack of transparency and timing. So while I understand others may take a different view, I don't think it's appropriate for me to endorse this approach, and I'll be voting against it.
Councillor Lawler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm joining this project late in the piece, but my understanding is what we heard from Wellington Water was also some failings with initial budgeting and projections based on that budgeting. And of course, the project has taken a long time and costs increase all the time. And yes, the overhead costings are part of that picture. So it's a sorry saga, really, in lots of ways. From a project management point of view, we do, of course, get a very important piece of infrastructure for the city, so I don't want to lose sight of that. I think for me, the questions are more around the formation of Te Aki Wai and how we ensure that it does better, seems to me the critical issue, particularly in the week that potential costings for residents are being debated. But I think it was Sir James Henare who said we've gone too far not to go further, and I think that is where we're at. We can't stop now. We have to get this finished. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Trillin?
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor Baker. Yeah, I guess I preface my comments by saying I'm certainly not endorsing this approach, but I think we do need to play the hand that we've been dealt. Look, we had a really good session with Wellington Water when they came through last week. I think we all made our frustrations pretty clear, and credit to them, they did front up and they gave us answers to the questions that we had, and acknowledging as well that obviously the current executive team is not the executive team that has been overseeing the majority of this project. They are responding to known issues and they are doing what we have asked them to do. So I do think it is important for us to recognise that. The key thing for me here isn't about whether or not this is the right thing to do. It's, well, what are the actual options we have in front of us, and what happens if we say no? That was the first question that I asked last week. What happens if we say no? And it was very clear that two main things would happen. First, all work prior to completion, despite the fact that it's opening in a matter of weeks, will halt, meaning that we're not finishing the proper earthworks around the sides of the tank, the planting that's going to go in there as well. You know, these are all things that I think everyone would expect to happen as part of the project, would likely be seen as cutting off our nose to spite our face by members of the public. And the second is that any fully sunk costs that are already locked in that can't be recovered by halting work are just recovered through the shareholders anyway. We are one of those shareholders, and it's going to come back to us regardless. Now, would that result in a slightly lower dollar figure coming back to PCC? Yep, because it would flow out to the other shareholders as well. Would be seen by our neighbours in the region as throwing our toys. And I think, frankly, that we can act more responsibly than that. I think it's important to remember that this isn't an increase that's applied just to this project. It's been applied across everything. The difference here is that part of the other contingency that we had budgeted had eventuated. We had some detailed questions for Wellington Water last week. I was satisfied with their answers on those. The reality is we budgeted in contingency. Some of those things did come up, and as a result, we were able to respond to them. There wasn't enough money left over for this unforeseen increase. That is frustrating. But again, it comes back to, for me, what actually happens if we say no. There are two good news stories here. The first is that despite the increases here, we have saved money on other Wellington Water projects, not just because, and they made that very clear last week, and it's mentioned in the report as well, this isn't just because some work hasn't been completed, other things have come in under cost. Let's recognise that. It's not like every single project is blowing out. We've made savings in some other places. That's really, really good. And now when this issue has come up, we're able to recover those somewhere else as well. And the other good news story is this is opening next month ahead of schedule. And that's the most important thing here. What's frustrated me the most about this whole process, and I think I mentioned this to some of my colleagues last week, was that this being the most important infrastructure project that we are working on at the moment, if Wellington Water had come to us 3 or 4 years ago when we started this process and pitched it in the exact same way and given us a realistic cost estimate of approaching $100 million, I suspect we would have gone ahead with the project anyway. It's still the most cost-effective way of dealing with the problems that we have. The alternative is either we do nothing, the problem gets worse, we spend an order of magnitude more money investing into the wastewater treatment plant, which would be achieving a similar outcome for much more money, or we do something similar around our pipe capacity, and that would be more expensive as well. The only thing I'm frustrated about here was that the estimates were wrong. We couldn't get our numbers right at the start, but we've gone through that process. So all of that is to say, certainly not endorsing what has happened here, but in terms of the options available, I think the most prudent and sensible and responsible decision is to go ahead with this and to be very thankful that this is the last time we will be giving Wellington Water any money. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Leggett.
I concur with your observations, Councillor Trillan. I just wanted to add that we are being pushed into a hard place, a rock and a hard place. And while I agree with Councillor Filo's observations as well, that we don't have any alternative, I would remind us that what we are getting is a piece of kit that will save at least 80 or 90% of the current overflows that are going into the harbour. And we should not forget that. I go back to when we originally, I agree with you, Josh, if it had been 100 million, I think we would have done that as well, because the cost of if you don't have this project, you have to not only get an increased flow in the sewage treatment plant, which is money, you also have to have the piping system that will get it there, which we don't have at the moment, which would cost a heck of a lot more money. So in terms of this, I'm confident that we're going to have, well, Te Aki Wai will have a great piece of kit that will have an observable effect on what goes into our harbour. So I support the recommendations.
Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora no. In the workshop session we had with Wellington Water, I did raise the lines about the counter-narratives that Councillor Trillan raised. And be assured I wouldn't have advocated for unnecessary improvements to infrastructure like the wastewater treatment plant if a better solution could come along. But I also, we can argue the toss over a beer, the two of us, about whether or not renewal of pipe networks would have been a more useful use of $100 million than a storage tank. However, we have gone down this path. It is pretty much complete, but we need to finish off that work. I also want to second the comments by Councillor Trillan with regards to the issue of the deferrals that would have to go in place if we did not go down this pathway. And furthermore, about the need to complete the work that the $2 million also covers as well. I specifically talk about the plantings that go around that plant. It is next door to one of our harbours that bears our name. Sediment that has come from the construction, and it is significant, if you've noted that there's a lot of soil over the side of it, will run off into the harbour, further exacerbating the issue of sedimentation into the harbour. If we don't do this work, then we are just as culpable as the decades and decades of development around Porirua, putting in more dirt into that harbour. That does not sit well with me. I think in the workshop with Wellington Water, I talked about the two errors, the pain that happened when they found that huge accounting error, and then the second, that was the first error, and the second error is the consequence of that. And I think Councillor Filo's point about wanting to be forthright at that point in terms of this project is a valid one. And if Wellington Water was still around after July the 1st, I would be probably in a very similar position to Councillor Filo and being far more bellicose around the implications of Wellington Water's operations moving forward. Alas, well, actually not alas, fortunately in a way, we have Te Aki Wai. Let us not fall into the same traps again. Anyone who's renovated their bathroom knows what a gut punch can be when your budget blows out because of things you did not know of. But I still need a toilet. This is a mess, quite simply, which is ironic because we're building something that's supposed to hold all of these messes. So I am reluctant, but I will support the measure. It does have an impact on completing this work has an impact on making sure that we do our best in improving harbour health. It is a regrettable position that I wish Wellington Water had been more forthright and upfront about. I wish we had known more about the information around cost projections and counter-narratives about what other projects we could have done instead. But tomorrow, or whenever this thing gets built, let's just say in the future day when this plant is finally operational, we can say as a council that we have made a big improvement in reducing outflows during heavy weather into the harbour, and that is something that I think is very important to our community. Kia ora koutou.
Councillor Fermanus?
The kind of similar view as Councillor Lawler being thrown in this, and not knowing full detail, and I'm quite conflicted. I appreciate the work that's done on this project ahead of schedule as well, and I understand the need for it in terms of our harbour and looking after our harbour, but I can't look past how much over the estimated cost this project has spent, not to mention the slip-up that's happened with Moore Point. I mean, the message we give not only the public but other contractors moving forward that want to go past their estimated figures. I think the last thing we need is to be seen giving them more money. And we were told moving forward that if it was a no, that they would most likely switch over to OPEX spend and get funding from there. I don't know what that looks like, but I'd rather go down that road and play damage control than give Wellington Water more money, so it's a no for me.
Okay, anybody else? No? I think you said everything I would have said. Oh, Taku, sorry.
I remember the morning we went down there to do karakia for the beginning of construction of that huge long drop. And I made it very clear that we're here to actually do karakia to protect the harbour moving forward. I think we've achieved that. I think that with the mechanism that's in place now, that's going to help us mitigate any further degradation of the harbour. And that's where Ngāti Toa sits. I mean, if there are any fiscal blowouts or other issues around it, then council will have to come to an agreement on how we mitigate. But our primary Our focus at the time and still is, and will always be moving forward, is the care of our harbour.
Thank you. And I totally agree with you. It is our biggest infrastructure spend ever in my time on council, and that's been a while. And it is about the harbour. We have made that commitment, and we couldn't have done as many pipes that needed fixing over that time. Jeff, I would have liked to have fixed pipes as well, but the cost to replace them all. So for overflows and holding, there's heavy rain coming. It's a shame it's not open, but it will be shortly. So that's the main thing. Not happy about giving extra money, but at least we're not adding extra OPEX and putting that back on the ratepayer because it's already there. So all those in favour? All those against? Recorded Councillor Philo and Councillor Fermanus. So that's carried. Thank you. We're now going to move that we go into public excluded, and we need to let Josh Cairns from Simpson Gresson to remain in the public excluded due to the subject matter. So thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hayward. All those in favour? Carried.